Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, a Cadence Independent Media production. First episode of Patron Supported Season 4. We took a few weeks off, kind of got everything together here, and we are super psyched to dive into this, our fourth season of releasing one of these almost every single week. First off, a few things have changed around here. We've upgraded some stuff. We have a new production partner in the form of GIK helping us with sort of acoustically treating the space here to get the best sound possible for everybody that's out there listening and watching what we're doing here. And we are extremely excited also about all of the drum manufacturers, different companies that we're going to get to work with over the course of this season and bringing out some amazing new products, some super interesting tips and tricks and hacks utilizing those products. We could not be more excited. But today, we're going back to an oldie and a very, very goodie, the age-old muffling situation. We kind of left last season talking about some things about the bass drum and how much muffling is too much muffling, and we want to dive into a similar scenario here using a couple of muffling techniques that are super common, specifically about the toms. Thanks so much to WTS Drums for hooking us up with this beautiful kit today, allowing us to share it with you. We've been having a blast with these drums for a while now, and we just want to give you a little bit of an introduction to what they do. The tuning system on these drums is a proprietary design that they came up with that emulates sort of rope tension drums from the past and effectively gives you the ability to tune both heads at the same time with a single tuning key and have both heads at the same tension, resulting in a really beautiful sound from all the drums really, really quickly. Here's a real-time experience that I had with these drums today when I sat down to just experiment with some sounds a little bit. As you can hear, they move through the ranges beautifully. They inspire you to play different styles, look for different sounds, and generally just kind of have fun without having to sweat tiny adjustments here and there. Follow the link below to learn more. They've got a lot of options, finish options, size options. There's something there for everybody. There are a lot of different things you can put on your drums to muffle, and we've talked about a ton over all of the years now that we've been doing this here. And we decided to kind of stick to the two main ones that we personally use here at this studio, and that is gaff tape and handkerchiefs. The reason why we like these two things is because they are both to a degree reusable. You know, gaff tape, you can kind of like move it around. It's not necessarily a one-use thing once you've ripped it off and stuck it on there. And then bandanas are also really handy for just putting in your cymbal bag because they take up almost no space and they have a lot of versatility in terms of sculpting the sound of your drums. But of course, first, we need to hear what these drums sound wide open with nothing on them. We've said it before and we'll say it again, these are unadulterated drum sounds. They are improved by some of the acoustic treatment that we are now sporting in the studio, but you're still hearing no EQ, no compression, just microphones, drums, that's it. Now, just to get out in front of it, because we know this is going to happen, the sounds that we're going to go through today, we're hoping that this doesn't become a thing of just listening to this and you saying, that's my favorite sound and I don't like the other ones, that kind of perspective. The goal here is more to take us to a realm where we have options that can go in a different sort of context depending on what you're doing, and just sort of open the ears up a little bit to the possibilities of a single tuning with a few different sort of muffling iterations. Less so about which one is the best, which one is the worst, stuff like that, because they're all usable depending on the situation you're in. The main reason that we chose this kit for this episode is their really big, round, wide open sound. They're a perfect candidate for little bits of muffling growing to ridiculous amounts of muffling so that you can really hear what's leaving and what's sort of joining the party in the sound as we add things to the heads. First up, my old standby, the one I probably do the most with gaff tape, which is a little square that's sort of creased in the center, makes sort of a little flag. One of them on each of the toms, pretty minimal, but you'll hear it's a subtle difference, but it's important. This is another one too where the size of the square, how many of them you use, you can sort of build it up, use a ton of them. We've experimented with that in previous videos. But for what I like this for, a little bit of, overtone taken away, a little more kind of fundamental in the center, subtle, but very effective. Where I would do this sort of thing is a situation where I'm still kind of going for a wide open sound, but I just need to suppress the overtones a very, very, very small amount. If you start to go more than that, you're going to start to actually change the sound of the drum overall. This is a type of thing where it's at the edge, it's not a lot of mass, and it's just adjusting a facet of the drum sound, which, it's subtle, but that's what we're looking for here. Tape iteration number 2. This isn't one that I actually do, but I've seen a lot of videos of it. We've seen a lot of it at backline kits, venues, things like that. It's a triangle. It's a triangle of gaff tape. Now what we did, because these aren't enormous drums, is we actually made our strips and then we split the strips lengthwise down the middle. So the pieces that are on here are actually like half of a strip of gaff tape wide. Now, sound-wise, we are dealing with a more dramatic effect with this amount of tape on there compared to the previous example, but it is still gaff tape, so it doesn't actually weigh very much. There's not a lot of mass there, but because of where it's located on the head and the fact that there is a bit more, it is giving us a pretty different effect than just a little bit right at the edge, which tends to live more in the overtone region of the sound, while the center of the head can still kind of do its fundamental thing. The other part of this is that this is getting into the area where you're going to hit with the sticks, so you do have to watch out for that. We did have the tape kind of wanting to come back up off of the head because I was striking it here and there just as I was moving around the kit. Things to keep in mind, which is also why moving things to the edge, if you can get the sound you need, is a little more convenient and a little less likely to come flying off while you're playing. I should also mention that in my personal experience in studios, I've seen things like the triangle on the reso head of the toms way more than the batters. Oftentimes I'll go in and hit a drum that has nothing on the batter and it sounds totally dead, and I turn it over and there's an impressive geometric pattern of tape on the bottom head. There are options there too. We're just going to do batters today, but you know, to each their own. Now, let's go one step further and move over to the bandanas, handkerchiefs, whatever we want to call them. We've talked about handkerchiefs and bandanas in the past in some different videos. This is definitely a thing I take with me to gigs all the time. We use them all the time here. We cut them up. We have a lot of uses for them. They're super handy. Now, the way that we attached these was we made sort of a triangle and moved it to the edge of the drum, and we used one of our favorite devices here, drum Gs, less as a bungee cord and more just as clamps with a little bit of tension on the cord to just keep this thing in place. We actually clamped it directly over the bandana so that it can't move off of the drum. If you've ever laid a piece of cloth on a drum and played it for a while, they kind of want to walk away in whatever direction you're striking it. So these are a fantastic way to make sure things stay put, in addition to using them for some of the ways that they were originally designed, you know, to hold percussion against the drum heads and things like that. Sonic effect here, a lot more mass, a lot more muffling, a lot more, again, of the real estate of the head in contact with something that's muffling it. And then we also have a little bit of tension from the drum Gs to keep it in place and press it against the head just a little bit. This is getting us into what I would say, you know, very muffled country. We're not talking about things in the realm of wide open anymore. This is going less from sustain and tone. We still have some resonance, but we're now getting into very, very punchy country. There's a couple of places where this is super duper useful. One of them is very low tension drums. It can help to kind of like quell the weird behavior that happens in tom heads when they're tuned super duper low and bring them into kind of like a centered sound, which is really, really nice, very handy. one of the reasons why we take them with us everywhere that we go. The other place that this comes in super handy is if you want to use less mics. If you're in situations maybe where you're not close miking all the toms, or where you're doing a little more of a lo-fi thing with maybe just an overhead and a kick mic, or one above and one to the side like we like to do here, we may want to compress those mics a bunch to kind of bring the whole kit together. And if there's overtones flying around everywhere, those overtones are going to get compressed too and kind of start to compete with the rest of the sound of the drum that we're actually looking for. So strategic muffling for minimal miking, or any time that you're really going to start to compress things super hard, this is a great way to just kind of bring all that together and get really focused sounds, especially at lower volumes too. So as you can hear, these are all usable sounds depending on the context. Something I didn't touch on earlier that's worth noting is also that from a little bit of tape to completely covered, we're also reducing the volume. And if you're in situations where it's a small room or a really bright sounding room with a lot of brick or glass that you're playing in, it's worth noting that we are bringing the volume down both in the high end and in the general behavior of the drums. So if you're in a situation where you could just stand to have a little less coming at you from them, all of these are options for that. If you liked what you heard today, there is a lot more to hear over at the Patreon. Playing examples, a little behind the scenes stuff, maybe some anecdotes about this kind of thing. Lots of extra content over there, in addition to our Cymbal series, which is up and running, popping off. We have episodes coming out once a month right now. There may be more in the future, depending on how it goes. Shoot over to the Patreon if you can. Check it out. It is sustaining us this season. It is our primary source. And special thanks to WTS Drums for sponsoring today's episode and helping us out with this beautiful kit. All right, as always, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you hear about all of our new videos. Share them with your friends and your family and anybody else that you think might like to hear about nerdy drum stuff. And again, thanks so much to WTS for sponsoring today's episode. Lastly, we would love to hear about your muffling experiences, particularly situations where you went a little overboard or what you thought was maybe too much and it ended up doing something super effective for you. Because we've talked a lot about not muffling here, and we've also talked about muffling. There's always options, there's always room to grow, and we want to hear your experiences.